Real estate investment practice problem using Excel. Price level adjusted mortgage PLAM PLAM part 2. Get ready because we're raising the stakes with real estate. So we are in our Excel worksheet. If you have access to the Excel worksheet, would like to follow along, note that we have 3 tabs on down below: example, practice, and blank. Let's take a look at them now, starting with the example tab, in essence being an answer key. Whenever we're looking at something a little bit different than the standard, we want to be comparing to the standard. In a prior presentation, we took a look at the 30-year fixed standard with the rate of the 10%. Payments then down here calculated using the payment calculation 877.57, constructing the amortization table with it, where we have that nice even payment all the way through. Interest always calculated on the same rate, and it being fully amortized at the end of the 30 years or 360 payments. We're moving over here then now to our PLAM type of loan, similar to an adjustable rate, except that we're not adjusting the rate. Instead, we are adjusting the ending balance periodically. We're saying yearly here based on some calculation of inflation, which we're assuming at the start of the loan to be the 6%. So this is similar to a situation where we have the adjustable rate loan, except that the rate doesn't adjust, but you still have some of the risk of that inflation going to the borrower instead of being taken by basically the lender. So that's going to be the concept of it. We then constructed our payments and then our ending balances and then the adjustment that would be made on a periodic basis for the 30-year time periods in a formula type of calculation. Now we'd like to double check that and get more information by constructing the amortization table based on the information we have put together in our little calculation table on the left. That's where we stand now. Practice tab is going to have some pre-formatted work cells so you can practice the practice problem with a little less formatting. And the blank tab, that's where we're working. That's where we left off last time. We've constructed, in essence, our table, calculating the payments, the ending balance before adjustments, then the adjustments. Now we're making the amortization table. So to do so, let's first start off by copying the amortization table we had with our straight 30-year, noting we have our payments, nice even payments. And if we go all the way down to the bottom in this type of calculation, we get down to 0. That's kind of like our double check down here that our amortization table's in balance. It's kind of like being in balance for accountants, the assets equaling the liabilities and equity. So that's a good thing to keep in mind and check. We're going to copy this whole table. Let's do it by just putting our cursor on column C, that skinny column, and going on over to column I, column C to column I. Then we're going to say right click and copy that and bring that on over, bring it on over to R, column R, right click and paste it right there. Just paste it normal. There it is. We got the formatting. We got everything we need. We just want to be changing the payment amounts now. Now, as we go through the schedule, what I'm going to do is kind of highlight where we're at over here to try to get an idea of where we're at as we adjust this period by period 30 times through our amortization table. Remember that this is something that we're projecting out at the beginning, that 6% increase in inflation. We don't really know what that is, because that's projecting out into the future. We're assuming a 6% increase for the entire 30 years. This is another area where you'd want to set up your table so that you can make adjustments to things like inflation in this cell and have everything else populate automatically, thereby being able to run worst case, best case, average case type of scenarios. All right, so we're going to go over to the right-hand side and do this as we go. The beginning loan balance needs to be this 100,000. That's our starting point. And then we're going to be in period 1. So I'll greenify this first one as having been done. Let's just do that. And then we're working on the one that's under the greenified one. Let's add some brackets around this thing, some borders. Might make it a little cleaner. Home tab, font group, put some borders around this thing. All borders. There we go. Okay, so then we're going to go to our payment. So the first one, starting off just normal, our payment calculation is here based on the 4%. So I'm just going to say this is going to be equal to our payment right there. F4 on the keyboard, $ before the O and 3. Copy that on down, and then we'll do our calculation on the interest. Needs to be based on that 4%. double clicking the interest at B7. That's where the interest is coming. We need to get that and pull that from the 4% on the left-hand side. F4 on the keyboard, $ before the L and 7, so we can copy it on down, putting our cursor back on it, double-clicking on Phil's handle, and that'll take it on down. Now we can double-check at the bottom here, going all the way to the bottom. Does that do what we think it should do? And it does, because we're back to 0 here. So that's kind of our double-check. And we have that. That should be something that will play out through our whole process here. So we'll be able to kind of double check that with this kind of loan. Then what I'm going to do is let's go to period 2 and do our banded things. So we can see the years broken out with bandits, like a bandit. So there we go, the band. And then at the end, we're at the 98,239. Notice that represents this number in the balance that had not yet been adjusted. Then we adjusted it for inflation, increasing it by the 6%. So with our amortization table, what we're going to do is just at the end of the period, I'm just going to adjust that. You might mark it and say, hey, I've done something to that one, make it maybe another color like orange, and say now we've updated that to our adjusted total, 104,133. Like so. So now we've made that adjustment, and then we can go to the next one and say now in year 2, our payment has now, based on that, let's say this one's done. Let's greenify it. Say greenify, saying it's done. That's what the green means. And then this one is now the next one. So we're going to say now the payments went up to the 506 based on that new loan amount, because we recalculated the payment on that. Double click on that. We're going to say F4 on the keyboard, $ before the O and the 4. Then we can copy it down, double click in the fill handle. We do not need to recalculate the rate calculation this time because the rate calculation is what it is. So that's good. And then we can double check our ending balance to see if it's done what we think it should. We're at the 102,191. Which is matching what we got here in our ending balance before we updated it for inflation. So now we're going to take that 102,191, increase it by the 6%, assuming that being the inflation amount. Remember, the inflation amount is not something that will necessarily be constant. It's something that we don't know, and we might use some constant number to project when we're projecting it out. And then as time actually passes, we'll have to use the calculation that has actually been determined on to think about what the inflation is at that point. So we're going to say this equals then, we'll scroll on up. We're looking at the 108,322 and enter. We can green it. We'll make that orange now. We'll say we've updated that one. That one's been updated. And then the payment down here, we're going to update it because it's been now adjusted. And we did that in our table up top based on that new calculation. So now we're at the 536.42. I'm going to say F4 on the keyboard, $ before the O and 5. Put our cursor back on it, double click on the fill handle, dragging it all the way down. Now, we've been checking this year by year, which we'll continue to do. But note that if you go all the way down to the bottom after each of these steps, it should also be 0 down there as well, giving us that verification that it does look like it's doing the right stuff is happening here. We've got the right stuff happening. So we're going to then make that green. Let's greenify that, and then that happens at the end of year 2. Let's go ahead and band out this whole thing. I'm going to band out 4. So we got these bands that will tell us, the every other years. So we've made it we banded it, make it abandoned. Abandoned it. It's not been abandoned. It's been banded, not abandoned. We're not leaving it. We're putting bands. We're banding it, making it have bands on it. So then we're going to go to 8 every other year here. We put the green band on there. It has a functionality of letting us know every other year, and it looks nice. It looks nice. So it has that aesthetic appeal with the green, which is a nice soft green on every other year here. So on 12, go on down to 14, put a bandit right there, bandit, and then we're getting close here. 15, go to 16, bandit on 16. The evens get the bands. Why do the even numbers get the green? It's not like one is better than the other. Both the green and white are good. It's just, it's the combination between the two that gives us that desired goal and aesthetic appeal that we're seeking. So 20, and then we're looking 22, 22, put a bandit on that one. 22, 24, we'll band out that one. I'm missing a couple. Got to do the whole year. It doesn't help if you do half years or something like that. You may think it looks better for some reason, but then we lose the whole point of the process. So 28, we're almost there. 28, there we go. And then we're on 30. Finally, the last band has been applied. Okay, scrolling back up top then. Scrolling back up, we're on year 3. So year 3 ended at the 106. Now I'm going to put my cursor on it, try to do this a little bit more systematically. We're at the 106, 179. So 106, 179 is this number. We need it to be that number. So I'm going to say equals. I'm going to point to that 112,549, enter. So now we've updated it. I'm going to make this one green. We've completed this process, greenifying this one up top. We're on 4 now. 4 needs to be updated for the payment. So going down to 4, this payment needs to be updated, equals the new payment for 4, which is this number. And then I need to select F4 on the keyboard, making it absolute $ before the O and 6. Putting my cursor back on it, double click fill handle, pulling that on down. Go to the end of year 4, which is now the 110, 185. Scrolling up, does that check out? 110, 185 right there, but it needs to be the 116, 796. So I'm going to say equals 116 because we're increasing it for the inflation. And then enter. Going to scroll up, greenify year 4 because it has been done. Applying the new rate now to year 5. Scrolling down to year 5, there it is. That's where the new rate needs to be based on the new updated amount. That's going to be the 602. We're going to select F4 on the keyboard, making it absolute. Putting our cursor back on it, double clicking the fill handle, dragging it on down, or just making it go down with a button. And then we got the 114, 188 for the end of year 5. Does that tie out? 114, 188. It sure does, but I need to update it for the inflation. 121, 39, 121, 120. It was 121, that's right, 121.39. We'll greenify this cell, making that green. Next one needs to be that number for 6. So we'll go on down to 6 here. We're in year 6 now. The payments need to be increased to the payments of 638.89. We'll select F4 keyboard, put our cursor back on it, double click fills handle button, bringing that on down. Ending balance at the end of year 6, 118,162. So 118,162 looks good. So I'm going to say equals and update it now to 125,252. Enter. Scrolling back up, greenifying the next column or row. That's a row, not a column. Rows go up and down. Rows go side to side. Columns, whatever. So then on 7, we're on 7 here. We need to say that's going to be equal to this one, 677.22. Make that F4 on the keyboard, enter, putting our cursor back on it, double clicking, bringing it on down. Ending balance 122.77 at the end of year 7. That's right, 122.77. So now I'm going to change it to the updated number for inflation calculation. Scrolling back up, we're going to then greenify row 7. Row 7 has been greenified. And then we're going to say in 8, we've got the new payment now. 8 needs to be new paymentized because of that change to the 717.86. And then we're going to say F4 on the keyboard. Enter. Put our cursor back on that one. Double click, taking that one on down to the end. End of year 8, 125,900. 125,900. Does that match out? It does. There it is, 129. But we need to change it now to the updated number, which is 133,454. Then we'll greenify year 8 because it's been done. 8 down to 8. We're almost halfway through. We're at the 760 year 9 now. Year 9 is going to be equal to the table up top at the 760. F4 on the keyboard. Enter. Putting our cursor back on. Double clicking it back on down. Double click. I can't put my fill handle. It's too small to get the. So there it is. So now we need the ending balance for year 9. Got out of sync here. Year 9, which is the 129,590. 129,590. That's right. Changing it then to be 137,366. There we have that. Then we'll go back up top. This one has been completed. Year 9 has been completed. Year 10, 806 is the payment now. Year 10 needs to be changed to 806 because that's the new payment we calculated. F4 on the keyboard, dollar signs, enter, putting the cursor back on, double clicking fill handle, checking the end of year 10, now at 133,104. 133,104 is correct. We're going to change it for the inflation to the 141, which I messed up. Hold on. Year 10. I have to hit equals first. Year 10 is right there. So then right there, I'm going to say equals, and then that allows me to change it to that, to this one. Enter. Scrolling back up. Year 10 is done. Year 10 is done. Year 11, we're at the 854 now. 854, year 11, putting our cursor there and bringing it on up to year 11. 854, F4 keyboard, enter, putting our cursor back on, fill handle, double click, end of year 11. 136,388, scrolling up, that looks correct. So I'm going to say equals and then scroll back on up. We're going to pick that 144,572 up. Scrolling back up, greenify then the 11 because it's done. We're on 12 now. Scrolling down to year 12, which is that 855 is now going to be equal to the new number, which is 906. F4 keyboard, enter, putting our cursor back on it, double click fill handle, dragging it down, end of year 12, 139,385. So there's the 139,385, which we're now going to change to be the 147,748. Enter. Scrolling back up, greenifying that cell because it's done for year 12. Year 13 is now at the 960. So year 13 down here is going to now be equal to, scrolling up the 960, F4 on the keyboard, enter, putting our cursor back on it, double clicking, pulling that down. End of year 13, 142.26. 142.26 is correct. So we're going to say equals and adjust it for inflation to the 155.47. Adjust our table up top then for year 13, greenifying 13 because we're now on 14 where we need 1,018 year 14. All the way down year 14 is going to be equal to now. Scrolling back up, we want the 1,018 F4 keyboard, putting our cursor back on it, double clicking, bringing that on down. End of year 14, 144,235. 144,235 is correct. Therefore, I'm going to say equals. Go to the end of it, 152,886, and enter. Then we'll change the color on the prior year that has been completed. Year 15 is what we are on now. We're looking at 15. Year 15 down here needs to then be equal to on the payment, adjusted according to the table, to the 1,079.39. F4 keyboard, enter, double clicking fill handle, going down to the end. 145,925 is the next balance. Looks correct. So I'm going to say equals and adjust it for inflation. 154,681. Scrolling back up, greenifying the next number. We're now on 16. So we're going to go on down to 16 and adjust the balance there. which is going to be equal to, scrolling back up, the next payment amount, 114, F4 on the keyboard, enter, double click in the fill handle, scrolling down to 16. I'm just going to assume this is correct now. I'm going to say equal and scroll back up to the end of 16, which is now adjusted to 155,818. Then I'm going to scroll back up top and change or greenify this. We're on 17 now, scrolling down to 17, which I'm going to say is way down here. We're going to say this equals 17. Scrolling back up, the 121280, F4 on the keyboard, enter. Taking that all the way down. At the end of the period, I'm going to assume this is correct and say equals and scroll back up to the end of 17. 156 is our adjusted number now. I'm going to scroll back up and greenify 17. We're now on 18. Scrolling down to 18. We're going to say that this will then be equal to, in 18, equal to, up arrow, we're looking 18, that 128557, F4 on the keyboard, enter, taking that down to the end, putting our cursor at the end of 18, assuming that is correct, scrolling up to the top, picking up the new balance, 155644, scrolling back up, then adjusting this ending balance, making it green. Now you could actually move this data down. Let's try doing that. I'm going to take my data here and I'm not going to cut it. I'm not going to copy it, but I'm just going to drag it down and try to just drag it down. And then I'll bring it back up at the end of this thing. Or I could say cut, let's say Control X, cut the data and bring it down. Where are we at? We're at like 18 down here. Bring it right there. That would make it easier, wouldn't it? Would that make it easier? Is that better? It sure is. It sure is better. So now there's the 155, and now we're going to say this is going to be equal to the 1362 F4 on the keyboard, dragging that down. And then at the end, 145.3. So there's that one equals the ending balance. Enter, greenify this item, making it green. 20 is now going to be equal to this one, F4 on the keyboard, dragging it down or autofill. The end of that year is now going to be equal to the 151. And then we're going to greenify 20 as being completed. We're on 21, which is now going to be equal to this number, F4 on the keyboard, dragging it down, pulling it down. We're at the 138,678. That looks correct. Equals the ending balance. Enter. Greenifying that cell, making it green. There we have it. Let's pull this whole thing down again. Let's pull this down again because that seems to work like really good. Let's pull this down so we can see it in our working range. All right, we're at 22. We could pull it down even more than that, even more. All right, so we're at 22. So 22 is now the new balance of this. F4 on the keyboard, bringing that on down. Bring it on down. We're at the 133.50. That looks right. So now I'm going to change it to 141 and then greenify this one. Right click and greenify. Now we're on the next, which is 23 equals this payment. F4 on the keyboard. Bringing that on down. F4. Now we're at the 125.8. We're going to say that equals the new balance, which is the 133. Greenifying number 23. And now we're at 24, which is going to be equal to this new payment. F4 on the keyboard. Enter. Dragging that down. We're almost there. We're almost there. I'm going to grab this. Control X. We're on let's bring this down to 25. So now are we on 25 now? Now we left on 24 here, which was the 123. So if we go up to 124, we had the 116. So there's the 116. We're going to adjust that now to be equal to the 123, greenify this one, making that green. And then on 25, this is going to be equal to the new payment, which is going to be this F4 on the keyboard, enter, bringing that on down. Bring it on down. And then at the end of 25, we're at the 104. We're going to change it now to the 111-259. And then we'll greenify this one, saying it is done. That's what the green means. When I color it green, it says that one's done. That's what it says. And then this is going to be equal to the 2049 F4 on the keyboard, bringing that on down. Fill handle, dragging or double clicking. There's the 90, so we're going to adjust it to the 96. Greenify 26. Man, we're close. I can feel it. This is getting, don't light up. Don't lighten up now. We're going strong to the end. We're going to finish this up. Here we go. We're at the 73 is going to be equal to the 77,979. Greenifying it. We're going to close this out with perfection. We're then going to change this one, F4 on the keyboard, bringing it on down. And then at the end, we're at the 5317, which is now going to be equal to this number. Greenifying number 28, greenify, and 29. Then we're at 29 payment, which needs to now be equal to this number, F4 on the keyboard, pull that one down. And then we're at the end of 29, which is the 2866. That's right. So we're going to change that to 30. And then we're going to just change on 30. Finally, this one, F4 on the keyboard, and drag that one down. And there we have it. It goes to 0. Whew. Man, that was easy. Okay, so then we're just going to make all of this. Let's make these ones orange. These are the ones we adjusted. Those are where all the adjustments are. That's what the orange says. When you say orange on this worksheet, it says these are the cells that were adjusted because of inflation at the end of the period. So at the end of each year, we can orangify, 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 all the way up to these ones, 17, 16. There's a lot of isn't there an easier way? Probably, but maybe not. So we'll just do it. We'll do what we're going to do. But once we got it set up, then everything ties together and the whole thing will populate automatically as we change our data sets on the left-hand side. So that's the nice thing. So it takes a little bit of time, but once you have it set up, then it's set up for multiple scenarios into the future, and you can do projections till your heart's desires have been met. So we're going to go down. Let's cut this data and bring that on back up again. So I'm going to take this, Control X, bring that back up to where it's supposed to be, up to the top. So we'll bring that up here, and there it is. So there we have it. Now, if we adjusted like our inflation, we only have one number adjusting inflation for the entire year. So you could make it more complex, saying, I think inflation is going to go up by this rate for 5 years and then even out or something like that, which would be more complex. But here, at least we could say if I changed the inflation to 3% or something, we should have everything basically change on its own, ending balances changing out now, and it's all constructed out, and then we can do our analyses on it from there. So we do have this constraint of we assumed an even inflation rate over the life, and you could again get more complex on that and use multiple different inflation rates. But that's what we have. That is it. So next time we'll take a look at this and just apply our IRR type of calculations, put together basically a pivot table with it.